Hi, I'm Nopa. Today I will be taking you on the journey through the history of psychology. We will start from the ancient times where people believed the mental illness were caused by the supernatural forces and explore how our understandings of the mind and behavior has evolved over the time. From the ancient civilizations to the modern discoveries, we will trace the development of the psychology and see how it has grown into the fascinating field it is today. Let's embark on the journey and discover the intriguing story of the psychology's past. In the past, mental illness were often attributed to the supernatural forces such as the demonic possessions. To cure these conditions, people used practices like the definition, which involved the drilling holes in the skull to release the supposed evil spirits. However, as this time passed, pioneers like the Hippocrates began to propose the alternative explanation and thus suggesting that the mental health issues might have the physical causes rather than the supernatural ones. This shift in understanding the marked an important turning point into the development of the more effective and the human approaches to treating the mental illness. In the conclusion, our journey through the history of the psychology has taken from the ancient micro conceptions to the modern marvels. We have seen how the pioneers in the field challenged the privileged beliefs, pushing the boundaries and paved the way for the deeper understanding of the human minds and the behavior. As we reflect on the past, we are reminded that the psychology's history is one of the continuous growth, discovery, and evolution. So today we stand on the shoulders of those came before us, equipped with the knowledge, compassion, and the commitment to improving human lives. Let's carry this legacy forward, embracing the complexities and the wonders of the human experience and the striving to make a positive impact on the world around us. So, the Hippocrates, a renowned physician, significantly contributed to the understanding and the treatment of the mental health around the 460 BC. He proposed the humoral theory, which suggested the body contained four essential fluids like blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and the black bile that needed. Okay, now we will discuss about the Leitner Whitmer contributions. Leitner Whitmer founded the first psychological clinic at the University of Pennsylvania in the 1896, tracing the roots. It's challenging to trace um, from the ancient roots to modern clinical psychology. Similarly to the clinical psychology, despite difficulties in tracing the roots, tasks, there are the striking similarities between the ancient roots of the clinical psychology and its budding new development. Um, Now we will discuss the next slide in which we study about the next clinical psychology. What is clinical psychology and what are its contributions and definition of clinical psychology. So, the clinical psychology has the rich and evolving history. Here's a brief overview. And from the ancient roots, early recognition of the mental illness issues, like ancient civilizations such as the Greek recognized and treated the mental issues, and the philosophical and the medical approaches. Philosophers like the Plato and physicians like Hippocrates proposed the various theories and treatment for the mental health conditions. Next, we will study that emergence of the modern clinical psychology. In late the 19th century, clinical psychology began to take the shape as a distinct field with the work of the pioneers like the Sigmund Freud and the Leitner Whitmer. So, all of them contributed in the clinical psychology. So, the clinical psychology deals with the mental discoveries. It's about the studying and the treating mental health issues, mental versus the physical illness. Clinical psychology focuses on the mental disorders distinct from the physical illness. The third point is from the ancient history. So we already have discussed a lot about the from ancient history. Awareness of the mental illness goes back 2100 BC with the Babylonians. Ancient cultures today the mental discoveries. Cultures like ancient Hebrew use the methods like the prayer and the rituals. So, Greek contribution to the psychology roots. Western culture traces the medicine and the philosophy back to the ancient Greeks. Early 20th century clinical psychology continued to evolve with the development of assessment and testing, therapy and interventions. And from the assessment and testing, we will discuss the standardized test and assessments were created to diagnose and understand the mental health conditions. And from therapy and interventions, various therapeutic approaches such as the behavioral and cognitive behavioral therapies, psychoanalysis are emerged. So, modern clinical psychology contemporary practice. Today's clinical psychology is diverse field incorporating evidence-based treatments. Therapy is grounded in the scientific research such as the cognitive behavioral therapy and acceptance and commitment therapy. So, diverse population clinical psychologists work with the individuals, couples, families, and the groups from the diverse backgrounds and the age ranges. Interdisciplinary collaborations also important. So, um, we will discuss now the work of the Hippocrates. Um, Hippocrates is also known as the father of the medicine and psychology. Hippocrates linked the mental illness to the biology. He hypothesized the mental issues came from the imbalance in the bodily humors. He discovered the four bodily humors, and the four humors are Hippocrates talked about are the black bile, yellow bile, and the phalgum. So, black bile linked to the depression. Excessive black bile was thought to cause the melancholy depression, which is known as a depression nowadays also. Hippocrates categorized the mental condition. He organized the mental conditions into the type like the phrenitis, high fever plus the talkativeness, uh, and Greek term for the mental states, term like the mania, agitation without the fears, and the paranoia, bizarre thinking without the fear were used also. So, Hippocrates basically made the significant contributions to the field of medicines. His work revolutionized the ancient Greek medicine, establishing it as the distinct discipline from the philosophy and the mm, and medicine also. And he stressed the importance of the predicting the diseases outcomes and the providing the gentle supportive care of the patients. Next, we will discuss about the surgery. Hippocrates contributed to the development of surgical techniques, including the use of the antiseptics and the surgical instruments. And next, we will discuss about the Greek philosophers. And the Greek philosophers impacted the psychology like the Socrates, Plato, and Aristotle had the ideas that later influenced the psychiatry. So Socrates on the healing. He in this point we will discuss that he believed in speaking and the self-expression for the healing. So if we see the Plato's view of the soul. Plato thought that the soul had the three parts. He divided the soul into the three parts, which is the logisticans, which is head and the logic, thymus, which is chest and the courage, and algistican, which is the stomach and the instinctions. Next we will discuss the Greek philosophers and the treatment. They advocated for using the words to treat the mental illness and the mentally ill persons, mentally ill patients. Other cultures and the theories too. Traditionally, Chinese medicines, Yellow Emperor's book Internal Medicine, linked to the illness to yin and yang imbalance. In the traditional Chinese medicine, the concept of the yin and yang is fundamental to understand the balance and the harmony of the body's energy or the QI. Yin and yang represent the interconnected and the interdependent principles of the universe, where yin is basically associated with uh, receptivity, coldness, darkness, passivity, femininity, and yang is associated with the creativity, warmth, light, activity, and masculinity. And then we discuss the ancient Chinese used mental tests. They assessed and categorized the individuals of the 1,000 years before the modern psychological test in the Europe and the US. Mental illness in the medieval Europe, it was viewed through a religious lens, often see a demonic possessions. Maleficarum, the witch's hammer, a manual for identifying, torturing, and trying witches endorsed by the Pope. Witch trials and executions. About 150,000 people were victims of the religious executions in the Dark Ages. Then we will discuss the Renaissance shift. Renaissance is seen as the re-emergence of the scientific and the human approaches to the mental disorder. The Renaissance shift basically refers to the culture and intellectual transformation that occurred in the Europe, particularly in the Italy from 14th to 17th century. This period marked a significant departure from the medieval era, characterized by the renewed interest in the classical Greek and the Roman knowledge. So, um, art and the philosophy. So, if we discuss the key features of the Renaissance, we will focus on the revival of the classical learning and the humanism, artistic breakthroughs, and the scientific advancement. If we see in the details, and then we will discuss the revival of the classical learning, a renowned, which is a renowned focus on the studying ancient Greek and the Roman text, which sparked a surge in the artistic, um, uh, scientific, and the philosophical innovation. Then we discuss the Paracelsus, a physician rejecting the spiritual causes of the psychological difficulties, and Paracelsus' biological approaches. He argued the human behavior is a function of the biological processes. John Weir, 1515 to 1588, a physician who made the careful study of the individuals accused for the sorcery and witchcraft. Then we will discuss the Weir's classification system. Included the conditions like the toxic psychosis, senile psychosis, hysteria, paranoia, depression, and epilepsy also. Weir criticized witch hunts. He spoke out against the brutal treatment of the mentally ill in De Prestigious Demonum, the sleight hand of the demon. John Weir, a Dutch physician, was the vocal critic of the witch hunts during the 16th century. So, he also argued that the many accused witches were actually mentally ill or deluded rather than being in the league with the devil. Weir's work, particularly his book De Prestigious Demonum on the demonic illusion, demonium challenged the prevailing view on the witchcraft and the demonology. Then the key points of the Weir critique are the rejection of the demonic pact and the mental illness, opposition to the torture, and the skepticism of the witch trial. Then we will discuss about the more about the ancient history. If we see the key points, then we will discuss more about the rejection of demonic pact. We believe that witches didn't have the power to harm others through the uh, through the supernatural means, and that the idea of the demonic pact of the unfounded. And mental illness, he attributed many elect cases of the witchcraft to the mental illness, such as the melancholy or the possessions, which could be treated medically. Opposition to the torture. Now, in this point, we will see the Weirs condemned the use of the torture to extract confessions, pointing out that it could lead to the false admissions of the guilt.